So we've covered most of the fundamental functionality, but what remains is some of the more kind of advanced functionality that's particularly useful for scripting and automation purposes. So if we take a look at the create command, the help for the create command, you'll see there's a few other options here where it talks about templates and schemas and the ability to create something from a file. So we'll cover the from file first because that's the easiest and most straightforward. So basically, if you imagine, let's have a look here. Suppose we already have some file content that we simply wish to use as our note and properly basically file it into our note system. Obviously the idea is we can simply use that, and this is very straightforward. So you do Wibble create from file to use the long option, or you could type capital F, and then the path to your given the given content for that note. So we're just going to use this simple sum file.txt as an example here. So you'll see immediately indicates note will be created with contents from existing file, and it's that file that we just referenced, and then the rest is as normal. So you know, sum file text, and I'm just going to hammer my way through the rest here. Create new notes, and as you can see, it's created the notes and it hasn't opened it up in the editor because the presumption is that basically you've already got the content there and you simply want to insert it into the Wibble store. But of course we can see that it's there. So if I do an everything list again, so number 4, some file there, and if we open it, there is the content. So that's the from file option. Now what we also have are templates and schemas. So a template is, as the name suggests, basically similar to doing a from file, but it's basically just a stub that will pre-populate the notes, but then it does open it in your editor. So unlike from file, where the presumption is this is some complete full plain text document or source code file or whatever it may be, whatever non-binary file it is, and whereas the presumption is there you just want to insert this non-binary file as a new note using the content. The idea with a template is it's kind of a stubbed out template that you could then add further details to. So for example, you could imagine you could create a standard kind of template if you always take meeting notes, or if you have a standard kind of markdown template with a certain particular structure that you always use for taking notes on a particular topic. You know, wherever you want to enforce some kind of standardized default template, that's what it allows you to do. So let's take a look here. So if we do Wibble create list, what the list does is it shows all of the known schemas and all of the known templates. So basically this is the files that are going to be stored under either the schemas directory in the case of schemas, or the templates directory in the case of templates underneath your main Wibble store. I'll discuss schemas in a second, but let's look at the templates first. So if we were to check my directory, if we were to say look at this markdown example one, you know, again it's just a pre-existing file that can contain whatever you like, so nothing too exotic here. But if I do Wibble create template, and this is where the difference is, you want to basically the idea is you would organize it by file extension or file type and then the name of your templates. If you're familiar with kind of Yaz snippets or yet another snippet tool under kind of Emacs or these templating kind of tools, similar sort of principle. You organize it by file type and then the kind of the particular template you want to use. So we're going to do MD colon and then example, because the actual template is the file name of that one is example, and it's obviously an MD. So we enter that, Again, you get the confirmation that we're using this defined template one, and it was my new note using the markdown example template. Now note here that it's actually completely skipped the file type, which is exactly what you would expect, because the whole point is the templates are already organized by file type, so you can create whatever. You can create as many templates as you like, organized by whatever defined file extensions you like, by simply creating the directory and the files with whatever content you wish. So it knows this is a markdown file because that's the template it's using, so it skips that. Description, you know, some example note using an MD template, and I'm going to just hammer my way through the rest. Create new note, yes, and as you can see, it's opened the note up in my editor with the kind of template kind of pre-populated. So very easy to imagine how useful this can be if there's kind of fairly standardized kind of structure or a standardized kind of content that you always use for particular files, particular notes. You can use this to help standardize and pre-populate and enforce that kind of structure. So let's exit out of that. So that's the idea of using templates. So the idea is just simply the file type and then the name. Now let's do this list again here. You'll see that in the case of org files, there exists a template called default. Now default is special, and let me just show you the content of this. So I put some extra functionality in particular for org mode files so that they play nice with org roam and other kind of Emacs org tools. So if we just show the content of that, you'll see that it has a pretty standard kind of set of metadata for an org mode file. Plus it has this kind of this hashed kind of stub here, org ID, and what this means is it will get replaced with a unique org mode UUID as it generates the notes. But let's demonstrate that. So now you might be wondering, okay, but I'm not going to specify a template here, so how's it going to use it? Well, because we have a template whose name is default under the org mode type, whenever Wibble sees a template that is called default for the given type of note, it will use it if it exists. So let's demonstrate that. Title, some example org file using default templates. File type org, because we haven't explicitly told that we're using a template at this point. Description, this should use a template. And as you can see, it has in fact pulled in the content of that default template. And not only that, the ID, the org mode ID here, has already been pre-filled with a unique UUID. So essentially this is kind of already set up for use with systems like org roam. So you know, you just go ahead and fill in your kind of other metadata. So again, you do have the disadvantage of having to type the metadata twice, but that's because, you know, the way the org mode kind of systems work, the metadata is stored in the file, so that's kind of unavoidable. But yeah, some example org mode file category whatever, tags Wibble example, some content, something. Yeah, anyway, so you can see from the kind of messaging there that it's picked up the fact that this general this default template existed for that file type. So you know, if there's always a set content that you definitely want for a file of any given type, simply create a I'll show you the templates here. Simply create a file named default under that type of file, and it will always get used whenever you create a new note of that file type. So for example, if you're creating a source code file, I don't know, Java or something, you could, for example, have it pre-populate it with a standard kind of comment set of lines at the top, or if you always want your markdown files to have a particular kind of YAML header stubbed out so that you can fill that in easily, you could do that. So the idea is these templates are there just to help you A, save time, but B, enforce whatever system of kind of standardization makes sense for you, whatever helps you to keep all of your kind of knowledge, your kind of wiki, your information systems kind of standardized with anything that's kind of useful based on whatever system you want. So it's all about flexibility, really. So that's the templates. So we've discussed, you can create a note with the content from a file if you just simply want to dump that file content in as is. You've already got an existing file in your file system, you want to basically push that into your Wibble store. We've talked about templates, where it uses that existing template to stub it out, and then you can continue to edit the note with whatever actual content you want. You could use a template for meeting minutes or something if you always have a kind of set thing that you enter. And we've also showed the case where if you name a template default under that file type, it will get used even if you don't explicitly specify that you want to use a template. So that's kind of handy. And in the particular case of orgmo files, if you create a default orgmo file, if you create a orgmo file and that default template exists, and the content of that default default template has this unique kind of stub here, this ## org_id ###, then that will get replaced automatically with a uniquely generated UUID. So it saves you having to basically open that org file in Emacs and do the org get ID get create kind of command in Emacs. It just saves you that step, so it's immediately kind of set up and good to go. So that's just a kind of bonus feature for org mode. I may add other bonus kind of template detections for other kind of markdown formats if I think of such a thing. So what does that leave left? Well, that leaves schemas. So let's have a look. So if we go into the schemas, I've got one example here which will perfectly suffice. The idea of a schema is basically it's to kind of provide a stub for your metadata. So whereas a template basically provides a stub for the file content, the schema provides a stub for the metadata. Now that's particularly useful in the sense, and this is where it potentially is quite powerful and very useful, and probably a very good idea to think carefully about this before you create huge numbers of notes and actually maybe set up a whole bunch of schemas, is basically it means that you can kind of encourage a consistent format for the way that you fill in the metadata for the notes, and that will help you further along the line when you have large numbers of notes and want to search for find notes based on particular criteria, or just list notes and be able to nicely pick them out in the list there, and just work them generally. If I show you the content of this schemas file, here we go. As you can see, it's a pretty straightforward plain text file, as with everything else. And again, if the line starts with the very first character being a hash, it's a comment line, so you can put whatever you like on that same line. So hash lines are comments. Otherwise, what it's looking for is any one of the metadata kind of fields. So by that I'm talking about the title, the file type, the description, project, tags, class, datadoors, key pairs, custom and linked IDs. Now some of these it doesn't really make sense to kind of specify a schema for. So in practice we're really talking about title, file type, description, project, tags, class, possibly key pairs, and custom. You probably don't want to specify, unless you have some very kind of peculiar advanced usage, you don't really want to specify schema values for linked IDs and datadoors, because that's generally automatically filled in by the Wibble system as you use it. So the other ones there, basically you simply, it's the name of the field but all in capitals, and then separated with a pipe symbol, and then whatever value, whatever stub value you want during the note creation. So we can see here this one with documentation, and by the way, this is just one file under the schema directory, but you could create subdirectories under here and with as many files as you like. If you create files under subdirectories, you just need to specify the relative path to that. So basically when we create a note using a schema, we type schema and then the name of the schema or the path to the schema relative to under that schema's directory. So in this case there is no kind of subdirectory, it's straight there, so we can just type schema documentation and press enter. And as you can see, it's using defined schema file documentation, and hopefully now it should be pretty much clearer. You see that it's basically pulling the content of these fields here and kind of pre-filling it as a kind of prompt when we create the note. So you can use this to help kind of enforce a consistent style. So I've got these kind of placeholders here to remind me that when I create a documentation kind of note, the idea is to use something like tech or topic. So here I would come in and I put, I don't know, whatever, Salesforce, I don't know, Apex, so QL, insertion documentation, who knows, whatever. The file type, again, it's picking up the pre-filled value from the schema, so I can just press enter, and you get the idea. It's basically giving me prompts and suggestions for how to fill in this particular type of note. Salesforce, notes and tips on SOQL manipulation, I don't know, project computing. Again, it's pre-filled these kind of tags in, so I'm just going to accept those. Class, to add a key pair, I don't know, whatever. Language, Apex, we can just, I don't know, priority low, custom, I don't know, could create Salesforce again here, perhaps. And so, you know, then we can create this note, and again, because it's an org mode file, it's picked up this default one here. So we've ended up on this particular example, we've used both a schema and it's picking up a default template because we have org mode. You know, so I'm not going to fill this in properly, but Salesforce, SO, yeah, let's just leave it at that. So that's using a schema file. As I say, you can create as many of these as you like. You can put them under subdirectories if you wish. So I don't know, you could put something like I don't know, you could do something like make the cells for SF, make the SF, copy documentation here, move documentation to SF doc, in SF doc, I don't know. So you can create more and more specific schemas if you want to do less and less typing, if you're creating lots of notes of one particular type. So, and let's for the sake of argument, change that to MD. So as you can see, we now have this sfdoc schema under SF. So how do I use that? Again, very straightforward. So if we go back to our Wibble create command here, Wibble create schema, and we just specify the relative path for that, sfdoc. And as you can see, it's now picking all of that up. So you can use this to basically pre-populate or pre-fill kind of, whatever percentage of the metadata you like, if you're creating lots and lots of notes of a particular type. And this is very powerful in terms of keeping your metadata clean and systematic. We're not going to have any key pairs. There we go. Some notes. Okay. And and as you can see, number 7 and 8 are looking a lot kind of, we've got some junk entries here just to show the use of the program, but you can see that when we start being a bit stricter and cleaner with the way that we input and manage information, we get some much nicer looking kind of notes and a lot easier to kind of browse through. If I do the extended display, you can select between our notes and you get the full metadata showing there. So that's how to use create notes from files, to create notes using templates, and create notes using schemas. Now, of course, you can use both a schema and a template together. That's absolutely perfectly doable. So let's have a look here. What templates do we have? We don't really have any useful ones here. We have this NV one. I'll just quickly do that just to demonstrate. So we'll use that same schema again, and we'll use the template MD example. And you can see it's picked up both of these facts. So we're using the define template and the define template and the define schema file. So again, it's not asking for the file type because we're already using this markdown template. We've got this pre-populated things here, MD file, whatever. And as you can see, it's got that pre-filled template content. So you can absolutely, and in fact, it's a good idea to combine the usage of both templates and schemas to enforce some kind of standardization on your wiki, your notes, knowledge system as you see fit. So that's one of the more that's the more advanced usage of Create, but very much recommended.